Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be looking at the Asher Knives Fixie and the Asher Knives Crossbar Spiro. We're going to get started first with the Spiro. One thing awesome about Asher Knives is they offer a lot of value for the knife you get. And I've been following them for a long time, and I've reviewed a lot of their knives. I reviewed the liner lock Spiro a long time ago, and also the flipper Spiro a long time ago. And I'll say each one of these has gotten better and better and better over time. And now we have the crossbar lock Spiro. Pretty sure I took a look at the prototype of this along with some others a while back, but didn't get to do a real full review on it. So what you're getting here is an excellent EDC size, at least in my opinion, at 7.4 inches long with a 3.2 inch drop point blade of S35V in stainless steel with a beautiful stone wash finish to it. Nice dual fullers on both sides, dual thumb studs. Very acute tip right there for piercing task. An excellently done sharpening choil. You can get tons of sharpening light before it'll start to widen in the back right here. You do have a small functional row of jimping. However, I wish they would have went out a little bit further with it because I tend to overshoot it a good bit, even though jimping doesn't really bother me either way. Every other Asher knife that I've tested has just blown me away. Let's see if this one does the same. This knife has excellent cutting geometry. It's got thin blade stock at 0.10 inches thick, flat grind that comes down to 14 to 15 thousandths behind the edge, and it has a 19-degree edge bevel on it. So I already knew it probably would perform pretty well, but man, that paired with a very sharp edge, this thing is just doing great. Now we're testing the ergos, see how well that edge wants to bite into this piece of pine, and it wanted to take large chunks out of this right away. It has nice contoured scales that were really comfortable, that wire pocket clips stayed out of the way of my palm. Yeah, I could have done this for a good amount of time. You know, it felt for a folding knife, I thought it felt really well. And yeah, that blade's really solid feeling in hand. Now we're going to test it on some sisal rope, 1/2 inch sisal rope. And you can see right now, it's push cutting it and it's just kind of exploding the rope. It's always a good sign of a nice sharp edge and good cutting geometry. You got enough belly on this drop point to easily be able to cut on a flat cutting surface. And I'm really locked in that pinch grip. So far this thing is performing really well. And like I said earlier, I've never really had an Asher that performed poorly at all. So yeah, it's blasting through it. We ended up getting through 90 cuts with a breeze before we ran out of the piece I cut for this test. Outstanding. You can see me using that pointer finger grip. That means the knife is nice and sharp, which is just so awesome. I cannot express how terrible these tests are whenever the knife is either dull or they over polished it and it just cuts fibrous materials terribly, but not this one. Excellent job. Hats off to Asher Knives. Like I said, I like this blade shape a lot because it has a low tip drop point. And yeah, it's just doing really well. And now we can see you can use that tip if you want to. It's a little laser beam up there by that tip because it's nice and thin. And just watch, I know it's sped up, but it just goes through all this material so fast. You know, especially the dense cardboard, it just glided through it. When we got to the 10-ounce denim, absolutely amazing. And guess what? We're going to do a little bit of batoning just to check out that crossbar lock, but it feels nice and solid. Absolutely no play. Super smooth. Same piece of wood that Mammoth's eye fell on. Now let's test the edge out. Look at that. Nice. Very nice. Even a good slow cut. Bam! Now let's take a look at the deployment and action. You have dual thumb studs on both sides, and this thing rockets out. It's got a crossbar lock creating the detent. Whack! Nice, smooth action. Once you release that crossbar lock, frictionless. It's riding on ceramic ball bearings, and it holds it in there really, really nice as well. Thumb studs are comfortable. You can easily access them on both sides, left or right-handed. You can also use that crossbar lock to deploy the knife easily, and if you wanted to, you could use that fuller to do the reverse flick, or you could just use the thumb studs, whatever you choose. Now let's take a look at the handle area. You have G10 scales that have beautiful contouring on them, nice softening of all those edges. The ergos on this knife were outstanding. Your hardware Torx T8 throughout, even the pocket clip. Excellent, excellent job, Asher. You have like a smooth texture on the G10, but it's not slippery. It has just enough traction there. I haven't had any problems with it whatsoever. And one thing that I like about this knife, especially, you know, when I first got it, I was noticing how solid this knife felt. And it has a little bit to do with, you know, that crossbar lock, and these scales have a clamshell construction. This G10 scale right here has been milled out. Instead of having a backspacer, you have a chunk of G10 creating a backspacer, and then the other piece on the other side. You can see the little line, hopefully right here, screwing it in. That helps with some side-to-side rigidity, and also for taking forces, like you saw whenever I was spine whacking it, takes those forces all the way back down to the back of the handle. You have a hidden lanyard post back there. Excellent. You know, I have an extra hole in the knife, just in case you're not a lanyard guy like myself. You have inset stainless steel liners, as you can see in there, with a weight of 3.69 ounces. Excellent. I carried this knife a lot, hardly knew it was in the pocket. You do have a deep carry wire pocket clip that sits pretty darn deep. All you see is this little top portion right here. Goes in and out of the pocket nicely, and it is reversible, which is something you definitely want to see with a crossbar lock, being that's an ambidextrous lock already. So the knife is completely ambidextrous. When it comes to crossbar locks, this is one of the most stout crossbar locks I've had in a while. No side to side at all, and that's usually something you'll see when you got a knife that smooth. And when it comes to the up and down, absolutely no slide. Very tight lockup, and that's why I felt okay doing some light kindling batoning. The little tabs for the crossbar lock are nice and comfortable. They stick out a little bit from the frame, so they're pretty easy to get a hold to, no matter which hand you grab them on. Size comparison with the Ontario Rat 1 and 2, Spyderco PM2 and Para 3, and it's very, very similar in length to the Miguron Mayoral and the CJRB Echo. Now for my nitpicks and complaints, the only thing is a nitpick. Like I said, excellent jimping, but if you're going to put the jimping, make it come out to about right here. That way, whenever you're choked up like that, you still have something to hold on to. But other than that, this is a well-dialed knife. At $115, I think it's a heck of a bargain. I think they're on sale right now. I don't know if it's $115 on sale or more than that. I don't know. But at $115, this is an outstanding knife. It performed great. It was super solid, as y'all could see. The action's great. The ergos are great. It's just an overall steal of a deal. Now let's check out the Fixie. So this is Asher and I's first fixed blade, and I'm so happy they went with the EDC fixed blade route. And what we have here is called the Asher Fixie. They didn't try to get too crazy with the name there. You have a taco style sheath, little bitty drainage hole right there, lashing points, and it comes with this little belt clip, pocket clip, and I will show that in use later on. Got a nice little spot to push off on, nice positive retention, no rattle, very well done. Wouldn't expect anything less from Asher. This one is about as big as I like to go with my EDC fixed blades. It's coming in at 7.33 inches long with a 3.33 inch drop point blade of CPM S90V steel. That is awesome, especially for a EDC fixie. It's not a hard use chopper, so I'm going to want this thing to perform really, really well and cut really well for all my day-to-day tasks. It has a nice stone wash finish. I love their stone wash. It hides wear really, really well. You have a, like I said, it's a drop point, close to a clip. It comes down, but I'd call it a drop point. You have a pretty fine tip, but there's still enough meat on it to do some harder tasks, maybe some batoning and stuff like that, because your blade stock's coming in at 0.13 inches thick. And I don't mind the thicker blade stock for a fixie, because I tend to do some rougher things with my EDC fixed blades. You do have a functional row of jimping when you're back here, but you could definitely overshoot it if you didn't want to use that jimping. You do have a decent sharpening notch right here. Clears the plunge. You might get a sharpening or two before it starts to widen up. However, a fixed blade, you could easily take a diamond file and extend that a little bit more if you wanted to, or a Dremel if you know what you're doing. This one has a high flat grind that kind of goes into like a slicer grind up here in the front that comes down to around 17 thousandths behind the edge. Let's see how this one performs. This one came pretty sharp out of box. It wasn't as sharp as the Spiro, but definitely sharp enough to get all these tests done that I'm doing. It's slicing pretty darn well. It has a little bit more belly than I usually love, but it's not too bad to where I can't get this type of stuff done. Decided to take it out in the nature trail, being that it is a fixie, and got a piece of birch right here that is pretty hard right now. It's doing a good job. The ergos were pretty darn good. The thickness was pretty good. It's contoured scales, no real hot spots to speak of. Now, it is a little bit narrow toward the front portion of those scales, so I did have to squeeze it a little bit tighter. So if you were going to be doing this for a long period of time, it may fatigue your wrist forms and stuff like that. But overall, I thought it was performing nice. I'm just making a little vampire steak for y'all right there, or toothpick. Doing some chest levers just real quick just to see how it felt, and it was comfortable. I'm not a bushcraft guy, but it was comfortable doing that. And I just want to show it in the pocket. Now, I clip it to the front pocket, and I did it in the back pocket a few times. It doesn't print or anything, but, you know, I wish the sheath would have came down a little lower. Now, on a flat cutting surface, that extra belly is really going to shine. As you can see here, you can either make sawing motion cuts, push-in cuts, pull cuts. It's going to get the job done. And, yep, once again, my dog heard I pressed that record button, and he had to give his 2 cents on how he thought the knife was performing. So, that one thing I love about S90V is it keeps an aggressive edge because of all those carbides in it. And especially if you sharpen the knife at around, 600, 700 grit, man, it takes a nice toothy edge. This one was performing well. And when I said it wasn't as sharp as the Spiro was very sharp out of the box. This one's sharp, not as sharp as the Spiro though. Once again, doing the 1/2 inch thistle rope, it's performing really well. And I'm able to use that belly to my advantage by just pretty much doing push down cuts. It's popping the rope pretty nice, and I can promise you after I put my own edge on it after the review, it's gonna perform outstanding. Like I said, I really like to sharpen my S90V blades out after I test them, immediately after I test them, because I know they're gonna perform even better than before, because most of these blades are sharpened on a belt. And you're going to have some fatigue steel toward that apex, so it might not last as long as it would, say you put your own sharpening. And usually after the second to third sharpening is full potential mode, and I can't wait because this one already is performing nicely. We get through 95 cuts before I run out of the piece of rope I cut. Definitely could have done more, no doubt about it. And I know a lot of people are afraid, thinking that S90V is a real brittle steel because of all the carbides, but we're going to do a little batoning with it and test that out. I don't think it's going to be the case, and I'm hoping that tip isn't too thin to baton. I don't think it is, because it feels decently thick behind it, but we're about to find out. Now let's check that edge out. Yeah, I figured it was still good. Nice. When it came to carrying the knife, like I showed in the testing portion, I clipped it to inside my pocket. I did it to my left pocket just because that's where the clip was at, and I also put it on my right belt. I preferred in the pocket, and I preferred in my back pocket. That's just how I like to carry my EDC fixed blades. I could easily swap this to this side and carry it in my right pocket. However, I do wish that the sheath came up a little bit higher. I get it, you know, that's where the little point is, but it still could have been done just to make it sit deeper in the pocket, because right now, as you saw in the video, all this handle sticking up. Now, it didn't print or anything, and it's still pretty nice and discreet, but it would have been nicer. However, I do like the fact that they gave us a pocket clip instead of a belt clip attachment. I could always slap an ulti clip on here to come out to about right here, like I've done on this Vosteed mink. And that way it gives you some extra length into the pocket. We have a full tank construction, nice contoured G10 scales that were very, very comfortable. You got nice softening on the edges, no hard edges anywhere. They fill out the hand pretty nice. I did talk about in the cutting, whenever I was doing the wood shaving, that being that this portion right here is a little bit narrow in this dimension, it did require me to squeeze down on the handle a little bit tighter just to make sure this doesn't move around in the hand any, causing extra blisters or really fatiguing the wrists and forearms. Now, being it's an EDC fixed blade, you know, you can make a quick feather stick like I did this past weekend with this knife. My daughter wants to do some s'mores in the backyard, so we have a little fire pit, and I used this knife exclusively to do some feather sticks to get the fire started, and it did excellently. The batoning y'all saw in this testing was also the batoning I did just to have some kindling for that said fire that I just talked about. I had no edge problems from doing the batoning. I know some people think that batoning with S90V is a terrible idea, but I mean, I don't have any chips or anything, any rolls, nothing crazy in that edge, and it's still nice and sharp. Like the fact that you have bolt-on construction, just in case you get this thing wet, you need to remove those scales, clean off underneath it, you can. You do have a lanyard hole, which is something I do like on my fixed blades, just if I wanted to do some little snap chop, but not something I would do with such a small fixed blade. But, you know, if you had big old meat hooks and you needed a little bit extra to hold on to, you could. And also, sometimes I like having that lanyard on my fixed blade so I can grab that lanyard with my pinky and then kind of grab this, you know, this manner, pulling it out of the sheath, especially with leather sheaths. I don't do it as much that way whenever I have Kydex because I'm usually grabbing it and pushing off. The weight on it in grams with the sheath is 142.5 grams or 5 ounces. Quick size comparisons with the Kaiser Baby and the White River Backpacker. Next up we have the Vosteed Mink and the Essie Azula. Last we have the Montana Knife Company Speed Goat and the LT Wright Frontier Valley. Now for nitpicks and complaints, I would have loved to see the blade stock thickness at like 1/8 or something, especially for an EDC fixed blade. It would have been still tough enough and it would have sliced even better than it already has. Also, I would love to see a pocket clip system at least to where it would carry this to where this would be about right here. You could either come up with the sheath. I don't really know what you could do there, but it carried fine. So just a very minor nitpick. Other than that, I think at $110 what these go for, that is an absolute steal. I do wish, being that you have the thicker blade stock, it does make it a little bit more weighty. That's one thing that I would have loved to see, the weight shaved down with some thinner blade stock. But like I said, still awesome fixed blade, $110. One with S90V that performed really, really well. Just kind of unheard of. And of course, the Spiro. Man, this thing is so well refined now. If you don't already own one of these, if you're looking for a great work knife, if you're looking for a great knife with S35VN that's comfortable, has good action, and I think it looks good as well. Both of these are an awesome little duo if you needed a companion right here for a fixed blade folder combo. are just two solid knives. If you have any questions about either one of them, feel free to ask me down in the comments. I hope everybody's having an absolute amazing day. I will see y'all on the next one. Peace.